Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to today's Waste 360 webinar, Leading the Future, How AI Will Transform Waste and Recycling, sponsored by AMCS. I am Gage Edwards, and I'll be your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll find the Navigation Center, which will allow you to learn about today's speaker, download resources, and participate in the Q&A sessions that take place at the end of our presentation. Throughout this session, we'll be launching a few poll questions to gather your insights and perspectives. We encourage you to actively participate by selecting your answers and engaging with each poll. Your input helps make this experience more dynamic and valuable for everyone. If you experience any technical difficulties, refresh the webinar console within your browser window or type your issue into the Q&A area, and we will be glad to offer one-on-one assistance. Towards the end of our webinar, we will ask you to complete our survey. Please take a minute to fill out this before leaving us today, as your feedback will provide us with valuable information on how we can improve future events. Now on to the presentation, Leading the Future, How AI Will Transform Waste and Recycling. Discussing today's topic is Evan Schwartz, Chief Innovation Officer, AMCS. To learn more about Evan, please visit the Info tab on your Navigation Center. And Evan, it's over to you.
Thank you, Gage. I appreciate it. So today we're going to cover how is AI transforming the waste and recycle industry. And anyone that's been very close to the waste and recycle industry, even over the last 2 decades, will know that the digital transformation that has really seeped into this industry at every facet has been an incredible transformation at speeds that I don't think too many industries has had to endure. So today we're going to look at, and we've already gotten through the introductions, we'll look at the innovation opportunities that artificial intelligence brings to the industry as a whole. We'll look exactly at how agentic AI strategy is shaping the way you do business and why it's important to look at what it is you're doing from a business and how you're applying AI from an operating model. We'll look at where your culture really kind of impacts the way that you would adopt AI across your business. And then we'll sum it up with some quick takeaways and some Q&A. So it would be remiss for me to really just jump into the deep end without understanding from an AMCS perspective where our vision comes from. It was extremely important for us to ground ourselves in a very solid vision. We're in 80 countries around the world. We're a heavily governed industry. We already have a number of compliances that we have to manage and deal with, and we're a critical infrastructure. As the latest pandemic proved, we had to keep moving. So AI is going to be no different for us. And AMCS came at this where we knew that there was going to be an intersection between the artificial intelligence and human ingenuity. There was no version of a future where the human element exited stage right completely. There's opportunities for automation, of course, but we really clung to a person plus AI strategy as the basis for our vision. And all of the decisions, all of our frameworks, the governance, everything that you're going to see today hangs off of that vision. And at the end of the day, it was a very strong and an appropriate bet, because as you look a year and a half later across a variety of other industries, there was a huge push for a headcount reduction around AI. AI is coming for their jobs, all of that. Looking at it like we looked at every other type of technology being brought in the industry, is how does it bring efficiencies? How does it increase margin? And it was proven that was a terrible way to look at the adoption of AI or what you would leverage AI into your business. Asymmetric growth is really where it's at, and it is a person plus AI journey. You're not going to get there with a technical tool alone. This isn't a technology problem, it's a digital workforce problem. So as AMCS began to review through the process where our agentic AI makes the greatest value, having that AI first approach is important. Now, those have been in the AMCS family for the last few decades as AMCS has grown up around the industry and all the technologies. It occurred to me that it may have been lost in communication as to why AMCS platform is referred to as AMCS platform. From the get-go, from the original vision statement of AMCS, we were not chasing an off-the-shelf one-size-fits-all solution for the industry. It doesn't exist. You can go to as many operators or waste and recycling folks as you want to, and you will find no matter How much they're in the same business or industry, none of them operate the same way. They bring their unique opportunities, skills, and ingenuity to the business. So from day one, AMCS wanted to build a platform for our customers to build on top of, to add their ingenuity to it, rather than just being, a box that you plugged in and you had to work within. So from the get-go, agentic AI was really the destination point, even if there wasn't a term for it at the beginning of the AMCS journey. As we've gone through setting up all of the foundations and getting into extensibility and allowing our customers to augment, offset, and extend the capabilities of the product, no better have we been positioned than we are today as the agentic age comes into view. We're already cloud native. We're immediately enabled through MCP to be able to build on top of the platform extremely easily. And a lot of the context problems that we are seeing maybe in other industries or, sister industries, comparable industries, that they're tripping over this, is that AI was a secondary thought. It was bolted on after the fact. And agentic AI slips into the AMCS platform like a pre-planned connector as it comes in. The entire development around the product has been waiting for this level of technical capability from the get-go. So when we look at the way that we've prepared this, is a process first driven architecture. And when you're looking at the business processes first and the technology second, you're driving to outcomes. You're always looking to get to outcomes when you're starting with a process. And then you're working out where the best component collaborates together across an ecosystem or a tech platform to achieve that outcome. That is exactly where AI shines the best, is it allows humans to really focus deeply on outcomes and enables AI to be the output generators of a lot of busy work, a lot of automation, but nowhere in any type of an industry is that more important than in industries that have a severe dependency on logistics, moving materials around, collection of materials that have a cost and a complexity from beginning to end. All of those connective tissue components, all of those verticals really conspire to eat away at margin. And having the ability to feed that context up and be able to make that extensible and drive the connective tissue efficiencies is where AMCS has gained significant opportunities and its customers across these last few decades. AI has amplified that as it really implements that into reality. So an AI powered platform where we're seeing those benefits. So I would say, let me just back up 2 seconds. So a year and a half ago, as we were releasing our sustainability products and the metrics, there was a realization that came to the forefront, is park whatever your belief around sustainability is. As you run those metrics and pull out your carbon footprint, it becomes abundantly evident that anywhere you have a high carbon footprint, those are areas where efficiencies are leaking and costing you margin. It is a leading indicator. It doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what the challenge is, but it's an indicator this is an area you need to look at more closely. And you can gain a multiplicative effect by not just looking at the individual workflow steps, but looking at the feeder steps as one leads into the next. So this is where AI, and this is just a quick story here on the performance sustainability. As we added AI across 3 tiers, each one of them stood individually, vertically, powerful amongst themselves. So predictive maintenance was able to take fluid samples off of a piece of equipment and tell you exactly what's wrong with it. Can it skip its maintenance? Does it need repair? Should you put it up for sale? Having that deep intelligence on how well the machine is running has in itself a very strong, powerful use case and narrative. But more importantly, as you start to couple that with vision AI, which allows you to really maximize the value of a route. I want to know if my container's over full. Is it contaminated? Was I able to complete that service? Those things start to compound as I get into my route optimization. An optimized route, just very quickly, is just the idealistic version of your route. If your truck had no problems and it ran this route, was able to perform these services and collect this material on a predicted level, this would be the best that route could be. And we were always falling too far short of that. Yeah, there were gains, but not the gains that everyone knew was there. But now, when you look at a well running vehicle, that adds to it. When you look at the fact that I can capture the leakage around contamination or overfill, because my route assumed that I'm picking up 90-gallon containers, for instance, and they're all over full, that's going to drive inefficiencies into my optimized route. So, tying these technical capabilities, these AI features together, you get a multiplicative effect and you can get closer and closer and closer to the idealized output of that optimized route. And that was the realization where AI across strong data context within our platforms and our service base are shining, because we can drive that efficiency not just in one use case, but across the entire business surface. So let's look at the agentic AI strategy. If you look at our framework, because AMCS is across 80 countries around the world, we have in significant compliances within our industries: GDPR, SOC 1, SOC 2, ISO 27001. AMCS is expecting to achieve ISO 42001 in AI by the end of this year. Data sovereignty, all of those rules and compliances add complexities and constraints into the business, making it difficult to run and operate and get what you would consider the optimal value out of your business. So as you can see, there's a theme that's running: is here's the idealistic output I should be able to get, but now I've got all these constraints that are sort of eating at my idealized outcome. So how can we help and make sure that AI is introduced into your business safely, seamlessly, and is consistently reproducing consistent work at a level of excellence? So the AMCS AI suite really kind of dug deeply into that person AI strategy. What do we need, and how do we need this to kind of work? The best technology in the world is invisible. If you have to touch and be, interact with the tech, it's not as powerful. So governance was the first area we looked at. If you can't be compliant and you can't operate without worrying about what the technology is doing or abusing under the hood, it's not going to be useful. So having a strong governance layer was the first and foremost that we had to build into our platform and our framework. Within that came uh, emerged actually a series of anti-patterns for AI. Just the 99 to 1 use case scenario. Here's an event, it happens 1 in 100 times. We're absolutely certain that there's revenue leakage there. How can we get at it? It's difficult for humans to get at it. It's hard for us to pull in all of that data and identify if this is the moment where the pattern hits. But also, the 99 to 1 use case pattern can be very dangerous. It becomes an anti-pattern if the one time it hits and you've gathered the revenue, you've picked up that leak margin, and it doesn't cover the 99 other times you had to interact with AI to identify that this is a one-off or 1 in 100 case. So the system, as part of its governance, isn't just flagging do's and don'ts and soft areas where the AI should operate or not operate, but it's also looking at what your use cases are. So as you're going in and asking it to do things or trying to build agents, it's holding itself up to a higher standard, allowing you to be creative, allowing you to drive your business without having to worry about, am I doing something I don't need to be doing, or now do I run a risk of this AI out interacting with my customer potentially doing something it shouldn't do? So that governance rail was incredibly important, particularly our customers that are in EMEA, as the EU AI Act is starting to come on board, have some bite behind it. Our operators are like, we want to use AI, but I can't be worried about that. We need you guys to worry about that. We were happy to worry about that. The other big piece is underneath the hood, and I'm sure if anyone's done even just tip their toe into the AI world, there are now hundreds, if not thousands, of models to choose from. How do you know which ones to use for which particular use case? So having an LLM or a model orchestration or management tool that allowed you to, again, focus on your work, focus on your creativity, and let the routing manager decide what would be the best use of an LLM at the least cost, most efficient, that I would need to get this done. So that was a critical component within the rail. The contents manager, that's the data that makes it work. As you get into the transformation and the adoption of AI across your organization, you're going to quickly bump into, what is an AI steward? How are people going to manage this thing? How do I keep eye on it? How do I protect against AI sprawl? The output sometimes looks pretty good. And how do I know that it is good? So all of those things are derived from the fact that the AI was asked to do something that there was no real solid data or knowledge provided to it for it to work. Anytime the agent has to dig into its LLM for a fact, it's going to hallucinate that fact. It might be right somewhere, but it might not be right in the instance in which you're asking it to do it. And that's a critical takeaway, because what I this is a common statement that I've made, and it holds true. AI might know everything there is to know about the waste and recycling business, but it knows nothing about your waste and recycling business. And that's where having that context layer and that SaaS foundational layer beneath at the bottom as your foundation data layer and your context layer is so important. It's that system that has codified your processes, all your flows, the way your business is configured, your upper and lower conformance, all of that context is there in that SaaS platform, or it should be. That gives the right level of context into your agents to be able to do the right thing. Being able to prompt, that's clarity of communication. That's a technique or a skill that can be taught into your stewards. And then being able to have your governance and your activity for observability to know what did they do and what are my dashboards so I know that these agents are producing consistently and reliable. So I need to have, very much like if you were running an MES system or a production system, your PLCs are, here's the target, my upper and lower conformance, my upper and lower limits, and my non-conformance. You're going to start to see all parts of your business transforming into that as the business operating model changes from putting a piece of tech on top of your business and just using it as a tool to modifying your business into its own operating system. A business will run very similar to the way manufacturing runs, of inputs and checking to make sure that your recipe is running appropriately and you're getting the right results out of an activity. So this framework is driving that with a context manager that is a perpetual learning and relearning system. And then the same thing is, as you codify those activities into reusable parts, they become subagents. They get really good experts at a specific activity. And those get hosted within this framework, allowing you as an operator to interface in at an AX, which is an agentic experience system, to be able to get it to go do the work with a high confidence that will do the work. And you can start to build your process automation across your entire business on top of this framework, which leads me to the lower rung, or that lower bar across the bottom, is the part where we're seeing our customers need the most help, but there is an adoption side to the technology. It's not just a tool you're going to insert into your business and hope it goes well. There's a strategy around the way the transformation needs to work. I've seen just constant mistakes happening where you go at off, or you go chasing the transformation around an area that you're pretty sure has significant leakage or opportunities for improvement with AI. But without really considering upstream and downstream, you may have introduced an agentic system that is now so efficient it's overrunning the next step in your flow in your business, or it's running so efficiently it's outrunning the step that's feeding it, and therefore you're not getting the efficiency out of it. You'll get a burst, but then it starts to fade, your ROI goes away, and you've invested a lot of money. So the third rung of this that AMCS really ran at is helping our customers go through that transformation. How do you get from UX to AX? And additionally, as we knew this wasn't going to be the flip of a switch, your people don't adopt things that quickly, right? People are messy. So it's going to take time for your organization to, at any given spot across a variety of departments, across a variety of workflows, for that adoption to occur. So from an AMCS perspective, we wanted to maintain a UX approach while offering AX capabilities, the ability to use agentic experience throughout your business, with a back end time limit that says maybe a year and a half we're not going to have both models. You're going to start seeing the first agentic only capabilities coming out of the system. There's no way for the old school human to go about it. That kind of means that now's the time to really start investing in your business model for this transformation, because you have a way to kind of ease it into your business. We're supporting both models, and that's just being compassionate to our customers and at the rate that they change. On the side there of this diagram, you'll see the third party loads in. We realize that we're not going to drop into our customers' environment and be all things for them. So we want to be able to connect into if they've got a different sales engine or if they've got a different CRM, and that can plug in and run across these same rails, because I only want one pane of glass to manage all of my AI. Otherwise, it quickly becomes AI sprawl. I end up with different disparate governance models that I have to maintain, and it becomes unmanageable very, very quickly. Now, inversely, is if you've already got all of this built out, your entire AI framework is well developed, we plug into that. We're not going to get teary-eyed if you're like, that's great, Evan, but we're not really interested. We've got that covered. Can you guys plug in? Absolutely. We can plug in directly into an agentic AI framework if you've already got one sitting in your environment and you want to use that. So the goal was to offer a complete platform for the adoption of AI, for the implementation of AI at all levels within your business, even outside the specific SaaS products that we provide. So AMCS has been for the longest time investing significantly in our R&D. So we're over 30 million euros a year, and that's been consistent for a little over 2 decades, that we've been driving this to build that trust, that governance, that compliant, that ability to make sure that what needs to happen is happening, to be able to build and innovate on top of the platform. There are things that we're doing that make sense to be within the core infrastructure, but the reality is to enable our customers to innovate easily within their business so they can bring their secret sauce to the platform. And this is why they are competitive in that space. You know, nothing is more disappointing than going back to your software vendor and saying, I need you to make a change to the product so that I can do this innovative thing, and then realize that your vendor has sold that to all of your competitors. But the big difference here with AI is that the bar of entry is significantly lower. I'm not going to say it's zero, but from a technical resource capacity, it is almost zero. I don't have to go out and hire a bunch of project managers and BAs and process analysts and teams developers and build and test and get it out. From concept to delivery on top of a platform that's AI first, AI ready, you can have some strong prototypes within a day with a little bit of testing internally, test driving it. Within a week, you're out the door, and none of your folks need to know how to code. You can build these agents, you can deploy these agents, you can set up all of your own governance, and we'll teach you how to do that. Right? We understand that this is an adoption problem. The technology problems kind of vanish. You're always going to have something better, faster, newer, multimodal, can do pictures and stuff. That's always going to come. From our perspective, as long as that's, I can unplug the old model and plug the new one in, great. What is interesting is, how do I get this adopted? How do I get ROI now? And how can I get my secret sauce on top of a platform without it being encoded in the platform and sold out to my competitors? And that's really what decades of investment has been for. When I go back to the beginning of this and state, we've had this on our vision list from day one. It's the reason why AMCS was called the AMCS platform. And for the first time, AI is really bringing that original vision of our CEO, Jimmy Martin, to reality, where, advanced common sense type person, maybe someone really good at macros and Excel, could communicate natural language into something and get a result. It's extremely exciting and powerful, and I'd love to demo it to you. So, but for real operations, this goes way, way beyond IT ticketing systems, prompting systems, asking questions. This is really about building solutions that do work, that can receive events, that can calculate or work within your upper and lower conformance and actually take action. And only in the most extreme cases does it have to escalate. Rather than the human in the loop, and if you've been in the AI space at all, you've heard this, keep human in the loop, but no one really describes what that means. Human in the loop for us is the AI steward that's driving the action in, making sure the data is available, and monitoring through dashboards the result. Very similarly to what you would see on a production floor. Someone managing, one of the workflow steps on a production floor is looking at inputs, looking at particular metrics, and looking at the output, and making sure that I'm getting what I'm expecting to get, and letting this machine, this AI, produce the output. And me, the steward, is now focused on the outcomes. The entire business surface, your human collateral, it becomes outcome based, and allowing these agents to focus on output. It's a very powerful transformation, but it is one that we're willing to help you with if you're not sure how to get from A to B. So As we stated before, the generic agents, they don't really do work. They build up queues. We're moving that into something that is doing work that's monitored, and only in the extreme escalation cases, or if it's going outside its conformance, do stewards have to insert themselves into the operations, find out where the breakdown was. Was it a vague ask? Was it a bad data context? What was the Tron and the thing that made it misbehave? Get that fixed. And then once you realize what the problem is, you're not wrenching it into place with your hand. You're re-educating the agent so that it can go and clean its mess up and then keep work going, just like you would a human being that was doing that work, performing that output. But again, human beings are moving into the outcome more strategic, more driving tactical outcomes rather than being the output generators. It's a very specific distinction, but it is the make it or break it to success, whether you're targeting margins of lift or you're targeting asymmetrical multiples of growth. That is the differentiator. So as we look at the AI multiplier, so we talked about the differentiator. The asymmetric growth is really targeting what you can do more. And we've run this across a variety of early adopter lighthouse customers. We're driving these outcomes with them. And what I'm seeing is it's a difference in the way that you think. If you only have so much capacity and you can only drive so much in a region, how are you going to get multiples of work? You've got to look at the things that aren't there, the empty spaces, the white spaces. Where can I help transform every interaction with a customer, whether they're calling in to pay their bill, calling in to order service, or calling in for a complaint? How do I turn that into an upsell, a cross sell? How can I manage to make sure that every asset is maximized and maximized more than I thought it was even possible? How can I get really just in time delivery? Someone calls up for a service and it's automatically built in. Someone else is really driving the input of those calls. My agents are looking at all of my capacity across vehicles and realize I can get that container delivered out to you today at this construction site. Goes ahead, puts the order in, gets it booked, and makes it happen. And all you need to worry about is whether your dispatchers are watching the right, you know, dashboards and screens to ensure that it's doing the right thing. So this is really the exciting opportunity here, is to be able to maximize the assets to the point of areas that I don't think people thought were possible. We're all very comfortable and have been at chasing margin, 20% increase in capability. It's a very different game when you say, well, how do I get twice what I was getting, four times of what I was getting with that asset before? That changes remodeling or a change in your operating model in your business to achieve that. It also forces you to look at up and downstream to make sure that you're not overrunning the next step or you're draining the step before it and outrunning it to where you're having to pump the brakes. But that is really where the AI multiplier comes in, is an efficiency level that I don't think most businesses were considering. During the internet age, when the internet first came out, everyone just threw internet over top of current business processes and thought, okay, so what? Big deal. Only when those businesses' operating model shifted did we start to see the multiples and opportunities with internet. And then today, we couldn't even fathom how a business would operate outside of being on the internet. This is the same thing. It's the same kind of transformation. So bear that in mind as you're building your plan. The agents will come across our transport area, logistics. Obviously, that's always an area for improvement. Being able to manage your dispatching, particularly dynamic dispatching throughout the day. Truck breaks down. The system's not waiting to be told what to do. It's setting up the work order to go into your fleet maintenance space for getting that truck fixed. It's rejigging the stops on those routes to make sure they can be managed that same day, as well as particularly managed maybe for the week or in the next couple of weeks, depending on what the nature of the accident is. Self-service agents for all of your high-end or your strategic assets, being able to get information out of the system, being able to just ask and get those reports. It's not just canned reports anymore. You would be able to talk to your self-service agent and say, look, I'm trying to make a deal here in the Southeast. We don't have a landfill. You're giving it some parameters. What would be the best price that I could offer across these sites, these locations, maybe even more discrete pricing in outer rings? That's all extremely possible today with just self-service agents analyzing your data in real time. The ability to do the CSR coworker. If you've got inconsistencies across your call center, some CSRs are going to be excellent and always end up with a smiley face. Some CSRs not so much. You can have a coworker that's helping that human customer service agent get through that activity, or you can put that agent out front, receiving the call up front, asking the right questions, getting the information, maybe even solving the call and diverting the call together. But if it can't, it's already gathered the information, it's interfaced into your call center ticketing system, put a ticket, and then handed that call off to a human agent rather than the human agent having to relive the story with the customer. Say, no, no, I've got it all right here. The agent on the call picked it up, put it all right here for me to look at. Give me a couple of seconds to get through it, and you're shorting that call to resolution as short as possible. And then just the business intelligence agent is really where you get away from point call conversations and you're looking at operating dashboards, new ways to look at it. But it goes even deeper in the agentic world. I'm not just looking at a dashboard that highlights potential problems, non-conformances. I'm asking the agentic AI to dig deeper and give me recommendations. Where is it seeing things broke down? Where's that leakage coming from on the route? Was it too high of a tip? Was it too costly? Was I unable to go to the landfill of choice and had to go maybe 10 or so many miles up the road to the next one? What was the challenge that's eating this away? Give me recommendations. So it becomes this strong thought partner as it allows you, again, as the human steward, to dig in and look at those individual components. So one of the things that's critical to the adoption of AI is your culture. And maybe you've heard this before, you haven't, but we're going to run a little bit of a poll here on the audience and just see, where do you think your culture exists? Are you risk averse? Risk averse is someone that if they were to go after the AI adoption, they're going to immediately go into, let me get all my governance, let me get all my data put together first, let me do all of that. Are you pragmatic? I'm going to sit and maybe look around my periphery at my competitors. Let me see what they're doing. Let me see what others are doing first, right? I want to see what how other people are using it, then I'll take that in and see if I can improve it. The early adopters are folks that are looking for quick tools that I can adopt in, get into my business and make work. And then the innovators are the ones that are really wanting to get hands-on, build as they go. I don't need to know all the answers. Let's build a little bit, test. Let's build a little bit, test. So that's kind of the four categories of cultures. And if you're being really honest with yourself on what your culture is, you're going to find that how you roll out AI, what your adoption strategy is going to be very closely tied to your culture. If you're running an innovation rollout adoption strategy and you're a risk averse company, your culture, it's not going to succeed. And the inverse is true. So if I'm trying to run a risk averse rollout adoption plan, but I've got an innovator culture, it's going to die before it gets out there. So understanding what your culture is very critical to your adoption plan. And if you have this up front, as we would come in and work with you on a rollout plan, this is going to be the first question we ask is, what is your culture? The second polling question is, if you're currently on the AI journey, where are you? Are you at the very beginning? You're doing discovery. Have you begun to work on your data infrastructure and you're getting all of your context to get data together? You're getting your governance together. Are you still looking for use cases? What can I do with this thing? What is your operational integration? Are you at a point where you're now in your POC and trying to run it out and you're seeing where systems can integrate and how they can connect to each other? Or are you just in a full-on race out to AX? You're just trying to get any and all screens out of the system, and I just want one super agent to run it all. Where have you gotten to on your journey? All right, so while that poll is up and you guys are picking your answers there, I want to talk about the why behind AMCS, because it's very important that we structure the way that this engagement works. So from an industry context, we've spent the last 2 to 3 decades building that context, understanding your business through the configuration of our system and our platform. We provide the processes, the business value, and all of the context to enable the AI. So we've structured and operationalized your data. right? So there's a difference between from knowledge and just data, right? A fact versus, knowing how you would drive something. How would I price this roll-off container within this region is knowledge, whereas, we have a 90-gallon bin. That's a piece of data, and maybe we have 3 million of those in inventory. So understanding that operational scale, that's already done within the platform. It's already done within the product. It's all well organized and structured, ready to be used as context. And whether you know it or not, having governance over your AI infrastructure is singularly the most important concept. Data can be fixed, right? I know there's a lot of folks out there that's like, it's data, 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 data. Data can be fixed. You could go out and realize you've got a hallucination problem and you realize that something's wrong with your context or your prompt. That can be fixed. But if you get out there and this thing's running amok and you don't have governance and you don't know where the upper and lower boundaries are, that is much, much harder to fix in the wild. So the AMCS platform comes with the governance layers pre-built, ready to go based on the EU AI Act and the NIST governance models. Now, those aren't hard locked, they're not forcing you into a box, but they are there and you have the ability to make them hard locks or soft locks to be able to decide, I'm going to accept the warning, but I've mitigated it elsewhere. We're going to go ahead and continue. So having that governance layer, having that AI framework out of the box that works in 80 countries around the world, understanding that your data is safe, that we're ISO 42001. So we understand GDP, we understand data sovereignty, and we understand that that's your data, and we take care of it that way, is all codified within the AMCS AI framework. And it's important that as you're driving into this next era, that you're managing that context, because hallucinations will kill your business and it'll kill the reputation of your business. The structuring of your data, particularly your operationalization of your data, is extremely costly to back into. And then the governance side, if you haven't implemented a governance structure, you don't understand, you're going to get AI sprawl, you're going to get these things behaving in ways they ought not behave, and you're not going to get the ROI out of the system in any way, shape, or form. So focusing on a stronger partner, what we've established since 2003, decades of experience from our partner EQT, financially sound. As I've been bragging about, we're certified all over the place. And we're going to be adding another sticker here at the end of the year for ISO 42001, and we're deeply recognized at a global level. So at this point, I think I'm going to drive into the Q&A if there are any questions that I can answer.
Sure. Thank you for the great presentation, Evan. Like he said, we're going to jump into the Q&A portion of our event. As a reminder to participate, click the Q&A icon in your navigation center, and then just type your question into the available text box before clicking send. If we are unable to answer your question, any questions submitted during today's webinar, we'll be sure to share them with our speaker who can reply to you offline. Evan, are you ready?
Let's do it. What's out there?
All right. Our first question comes in and says, as operators move from manual to intelligent, what are the most common data or infrastructure hurdles companies face? And what should leaders be doing now to ensure their data is AI ready?
Yeah, so that's a multifold answer. So the reality is, if you're still largely doing a lot of manual, you might have the facts of that data sitting in a database somewhere, but if you don't have the knowledge component, you're missing half of the problem. The AI or the agentic solution has to have kind of a why. It has to have the knowledge on top of those facts for it to act intelligently. If I just gave you a bunch of data and then expected you to do a job you've never done before, without that knowledge and context, you're not going to get there. It's expensive to have to look back, because what you're trying to codify is experience from someone who might have been at that job for 30 years. How do you just suddenly get that pulled into a system that an agent can use? So that is the hurdle. That's the barrier. If you've got an operational system that not only maintains the facts, the data, but also has the knowledge underneath it, understands your processes, how it was configured, understand what your features are, you now have enough to build context that you can feed an agent for it to get it to work. But the most common hurdle is making sure that you understand, one, the difference between knowledge and data, And when you're providing context into your agentic systems, it's sufficient to get done the task that you're trying to achieve.
Mm. All right, let's jump into our next question that talks about agentic AI. So you mentioned agentic AI and how that elevates teams rather than replaces them. Can you share a specific example of how a waste recycling operator might see their daily workload change once these AI agents are integrated?
Yeah, so I guess not knowing you didn't steer me into a specific category or role, so I'm just going to pick one. But odds are you have critical accounts, you have very high value commercial accounts or national accounts. And what that means is that you've got what's similar to a customer success or a national accounts representative that nurtures that account, make sure that that account's problems are taken care of and everything's dealt with. So that person owns a book of business. In that typical flow, that person is speaking with that account. That could be a large account of multiple locations. There could be half dozen, maybe even a few hundred individuals built within that account. There's only so much that they can communicate with. And every communication involves a certain amount of what I call low value but necessary work, right? Just as a specific example. So if I had a call, if I was, say Walmart's one of my accounts, and I've spoken to the representative and there were some concerns around X, Y, and Z. At the end of that call, I'm now having to form some kind of a dialogue back. I have to put it into my CRM system. I have to send the email letting them know that I captured all those problems. If there's any involvement with other departments, I have to set those meetings to make sure that they're aware of it, or I have to put it into their ticketing system to get action out. I have to follow up on it. All of that administrative work is low value but necessary. Having the ability to provide an agent to that and squeeze the high value work, because if everyone knows that human to human connection with that national account, that's keeping that national account. Even if there's problems, they know they're talking to a human, the human gets it and they're working on it and they're getting regular updates. That's going to make sure that account stays as happy as it can until it gets resolved. Well, if I've got agents doing all that low value but necessary work, I can now make far more of those calls with my book of business than I could if I had to make a call, do all that administrative work, follow up, make a call. It's on an order of a magnitude of 10x, because I can just go call to call. I can transcribe the conversation. I can train my agent to do all that stuff, get everything scheduled, drive my calendar, get the updates automatically. I can have the agent go fetch the answers in those other departments rather than me chasing another person down. And then I can feed that back to my account, let them know what's going on. That is direct bottom line impact that I'm preserving that net revenue retention against that customer. That in itself is just a very easy but powerful application of agentic tech. Within our platform, the ability to have an agent watching over all of your trucks while they're on the road running their routes. Here's the plan. This was the expectation. We're off track somewhere. Spend a lot of time out of house. What's going on? And it's pulling that information through the telematics on the truck, cameras on the truck, a variety of inputs maybe from the driver, and it's feeding recommendations to the dispatch manager. Hey, we've had a problem right here. We're recommending that we're going to miss two of your high priority customers, but there's three low priority customers in the way. Why don't we go ahead and shift them a little bit later, put the risk on the low value customers and bring my high value customers. That becomes a very easy thing that agents can do. Present that as a simple yes, no, hitting yes, and that's done right away the second there's a little bit of drift in the daily route. That's just one simple example of this thing's just constantly watching the till, as it were.
Mm-hmm. As a reminder, audience, we are approaching time here, so this will be our last call for questions. So if you have a question for Evan, please submit it now. We'll move on to another one here, Evan. It says, for organizations just starting their AI journey, what are the low-hanging fruit applications in transport or customer service that typically offer the fastest ROI or the lowest risk during implementation?
So right off the bat, you're targeting two good departments, right? Because they don't, as long as you're not subdividing that as an intra step, as I talked about before, where you're overrunning the step in front of you or behind you. And the customer service, if you have analyzed your inbound calls, go ahead and look at them. If you know that maybe they're calling in to pay their bill, or they're calling in with a billing question or an invoice question, something that can be satisfied with an interactive agent on the call and defer the call, that's a quick one. If it is something complicated, you can still do a lot with agents nowadays, particularly if they're sitting on a strong SaaS platform with context to help them. Hey, I ordered this, it's not there. That agent can go look at the truck and go, oh, well, the truck's running 45 minutes late. That would have been a call that would have had to have gone to a human to have to check in. So looking at ways to intercept calls coming inbound to your call center, it's a great first use case to look at. In your transport, looking at ways to drive the ability to dynamically optimize your route throughout the day based on real events. We've got a lot of tools today that build the optimized routes, but we don't have as many that are recalculating those routes throughout the day as events are occurring. And what we can't do as humans is look at all of the data, but agents can do that. So that's another good one, and it's helping your dispatch react quickly. And then if it's trainable, let it make the decision, right? If you're being a good AI steward and you're watching the dashboard, you can let it make the decision. So that's maybe a 1-2 step opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. And this question from the audience here says, would AI also be able to improve equipment technology and efficiency to recycle materials as corrugate?
All right, so read that last part to me again.
I'll do the whole thing here. Would AI
Okay.
also be able to improve equipment technology and efficiency to recycle materials as corrugate?
Yeah, so if you're talking about maintaining the health of the equipment, that's sort of a predictive maintenance. We've got agents that do that today now. If you're talking about sorting and grading material as it's going through, there are numerous agents that do that today as well. So that's a simple yes answer, I would say.
Well, it's good to go out on a simple answer there. That is all the time for questions we have. Thank you again, Evan. We appreciate your time and expertise on today's topic. I want to thank our sponsor again, AMCS, as well as everyone in the audience. We appreciate your attention and participation. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with details to and a link to today's presentation on demand. Please feel free to invite your colleagues and peers who may not have been able to attend the event. Thank you so much for attending and have a wonderful remainder of your day.
Thank you, Gage.
Thank you, Evan.